Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. According to reports from related media, on a certain day in September 2004, the Chinese embassy in Kenya received a letter. After reading its contents, the ambassador made an unexpected decision. He decided to personally lead a team of experts to the village of Jia Village on Puyi Island. The purpose of their trip was very clear: to collect biological samples, such as blood and hair, from the local villagers and send these samples back to China for detailed DNA analysis. Behind this decision was a surprising belief. The villagers of Jia Village firmly believed that their ancestors had a deep connection with China, even claiming to be descendants of the famous Zheng He. So, what would the DNA results reveal after testing? It is reported that the contents of the letter were roughly as follows: more than 600 years ago, a Chinese fleet had visited the area. Unfortunately, one of the ships accidentally collided with a reef and sank to the bottom of the sea. The people on board struggled for a long time but eventually escaped to the island, where they survived. Since then, they had settled there, living and passing on their heritage from generation to generation. Many people might guess that this was referring to the Zheng He Fleet. When the ambassador saw the letter, he felt a mixture of emotions. On one hand, he found the story hard to believe, but on the other hand, he couldn't help but laugh. As everyone knows, Zheng He, one of the heroes of Chinese maritime history, actually had an unknown identity. He was a eunuch named Ma Sanbao. At the age of 11, he was captured during a war, castrated, and became a eunuch. Since Zheng He was already a eunuch from a young age, how could he possibly have descendants? The letter was from a 17-year-old girl named Sharif. At first, the ambassador thought it was just a child's joke and didn't take it seriously. However, when he opened the envelope and saw a large stack of photos inside, he was immediately shocked. The photos showed various types of porcelain, including plates, bowls, and dishes. What stunned him most was that some of the porcelain pieces had the words Xuanda engraved on their bottoms. Xuanda was the reign title of Emperor Xuanzong of the Ming Dynasty. Every time Zheng He went on his voyages, he took over 20,000 sailors and shipworkers with him. If any of these sailors, for some reason, were forced to drift to a certain island, it wouldn't be impossible. It seemed that there might be valuable Ming Dynasty relics and historical remains hidden on Puyi Island. The legendary feats of Zheng He's 7 voyages are part of history. But there is a lack of concrete records about his furthest voyages and the events that took place during them. In theory, there should have been detailed archives for each of Zheng He's voyages because they were his official reports to the emperor. Had these archives been preserved, perhaps today we would be able to read a legendary travelogue full of incredible stories. According to the Shu Yuzhou Zi Lu, there were indeed some related records. However, during the reign of Emperor Chenghua of the Ming Dynasty, a minister named Lu Daxia believed that sending embassies to the west was both time-consuming and expensive. So he privately destroyed these records. Later, frequent wars and the Qing dynasty's loose management of Ming records led to the loss of many precious documents through casual destruction. Restoring this part of history is, indeed, extremely difficult. Zheng He's 7 voyages left many mysteries. And now, it seems that Puyi Island may also be telling the story of the mysterious traces left behind by Zheng He's fleet. To further investigate this history, the ambassador followed the information in the letter and went to Upper Jia Village, on Puyi Island. As soon as he arrived, he felt the warm gaze of the villagers, with some even approaching him to ask if he needed help. With their guidance, he quickly found Sharif's home. At the entrance of Sharif's home, a woman in her 60s greeted him. She tightly grasped the ambassador's hand, tears welling in her eyes, and spoke in a choppy, emotional voice. Along the way, the ambassador had also noticed that the villagers' skin tone wasn't as dark as typical Africans. Their hair seemed denser, and their lips weren't as thick. Despite 600 years having passed, they still retained some Chinese features. which made him curious about how many Ming Dynasty sailors had settled and multiplied there. Sharif's mother told the ambassador that their family had passed down a story about their ancestors. Around 600 years ago, Zheng He's massive fleet encountered a great storm at sea. As a result, one of the ships became separated from the fleet and crashed into a reef near the Lamu Islands, sinking to the bottom of the sea. Fortunately, over 20 sailors survived, and they desperately swam to the island. Unfortunately, when Zheng He's fleet returned, they did not pass by this area, and the island lacked the resources to build a similar ship. Thus, the sailors could only settle there and continue their lives. The village's name was derived from the sailors in memory of them. Sharif's mother took the ambassador on a tour of the village's porcelain and the sailors' burial site. During the visit, the ambassador was deeply moved and felt that these discoveries were very significant. He decided to invite domestic archaeological experts to verify the authenticity of these relics and collect the villagers' blood and hair samples for further DNA testing back in China. The ambassador was determined to uncover the truth and unveil the history behind these mysteries. In Upper Jia village, almost every household has old items from the Ming Dynasty. Especially various pieces of blue and white porcelain plates, bowls, and dishes, which are found almost everywhere. Sharif's mother took out a blue and white porcelain bowl from a corner and, smiling, told the ambassador that it was a precious family heirloom passed down through generations, brought back by their sailor ancestors. The family had always treated it as a treasured family treasure, and had carefully preserved it. Upon closer inspection of the bottom of the bowl, the words De Ming Xuanda were clearly visible. Additionally, around Upper Jia village, there is a Chinese-style cemetery. The semicircular tombs are tall and domed, surrounded by lush vegetation. The tombs have been renovated with cement and decorated with pieces of blue and white porcelain. In front of each tomb stands a stone tablet, and though the inscriptions have become faint over time, they can still be vaguely identified as being written in Chinese characters. What is most touching is that all these tombs face northeast. Sharif's mother told the ambassador that this direction symbolizes China. According to the family's ancestral tradition, even in death, one's gaze must remain directed toward the homeland. Soon after, Chinese archaeological experts learned of the matter and quickly arrived at the site. After identification, they confirmed that the porcelain owned by Upper Jia village was indeed rare Ming Dynasty treasure. Based on Sharif's mother's account, the dating of the porcelain, and comparisons with relevant historical documents, the experts were able to quickly reconstruct the events. Zheng He conducted 7 maritime expeditions during the Ming Dynasty, 6 of which were initiated by Emperor Yongle, Zhu Di. Zhu Di was passionate about exploring the West. However, after his death, the succeeding Emperor Renzong, Zhu Gaoqi, decided to halt the expeditions due to the high costs of maritime voyages. Zhu Gaoqi ascended the throne at the age of 40 but only reigned for 10 months before passing away. The following emperor, Xuanzong Zhu Zhangji, decided to send Zheng He on another voyage to display the country's power. The porcelain from Upper Jia village dates back to the Xuanda period. Experts speculate that these sailors were likely crew members from Zheng He's 7th voyage. Historical records indicate that in 1431, Zheng He began his 7th voyage. The fleet was enormous, with nearly 30,000 people. It set out from Nanjing, passing the western coast of India, the Bay of Bengal, and through the Strait of Malacca, eventually reaching the eastern coast of Africa. In that area, the sailors encountered a shipwreck, which occurred near the Lamu Islands. All of this seems to make sense now. Through DNA testing, scientists discovered that the villagers indeed carry Chinese genes in their lineage. Sharif gained attention when a Chinese employer funded her education. This event caused quite a stir. A few years later, she decided to go to China to trace her roots. With the help of the Chinese embassy, she became a student in Nanjing. where she studied traditional Chinese medicine and immersed herself in learning. Years later, the story of Zheng He's fleet was further verified locally. Archaeologists salvaged many Ming Dynasty relics, such as porcelain and vessels, from the waters around the Lamu Islands. These precious artifacts are now preserved in the Kenya National Museum. In 2017, archaeologists discovered 3 human skeletons on Manda Island. After identification, it was confirmed that these skeletons were of Chinese descent and dated back to the Xuande period of the Ming Dynasty. This discovery once again confirmed the Chinese heritage of the residents of Upper Jia village. As noted by relevant historians, the deep affection for the homeland now manifests as endless thoughts in the white hair of these descendants. It is because of the deep love and unwavering commitment to their homeland that these Ming Dynasty sailors' yearning to return home has transcended 600 years, ultimately coming to fruition. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.